Hi, I'm Rachel Burns with True Worth Financial Planning, and if you're going through a divorce, you might be wondering what you should be doing in terms of your finances. And the answer to that is it really depends on at what stage of the divorce process you are at currently. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about the various stages of your divorce and what types of considerations you should make at each stage, and also what types of help is available to you at each stage. So I'll start with the pre-divorce stage, then we'll talk about when you're in the midst of a divorce, and then lastly I'll talk about what to do after you're divorced. So to start off, if you have not yet filed, or even if you're just considering getting divorced, you might be wondering, what should I be doing? What can I do to prepare? I need to have a plan. If you're someone who needs to have a plan, that's good. It's good to be thinking into the future, but just know that there's not a lot that you can do that early in the process. I would say the best thing that you can do is get a grip on your expenses, get a really good idea of what it's going to cost to live. And that way, when you are looking at different options in terms of settlements and support and things like that, you'll know what your needs are. But other than that, there's not a huge amount of planning that you can do, because you're not really going to know the specifics of your situation yet. You're not going to know how assets are split up. You're not going to know exactly what your income is going to look like. You don't know if you're going to be receiving support, if you're going to be paying support. All of those things are still up in the air, so it's really hard to come up with a plan. But I would say just getting a grip on your expenses and your budget, and just getting organized with your finances is probably the best thing that you can do at that point. And if you're planning on using some sort of like a financial advisor or some sort of other professional to help with, it might be best to kind of wait for at least the financial stuff, to wait until you have a little bit more detail on your situation. Once you're actually into the divorce, so you're in the process, maybe you filed, there's a lot more that you could do at that point, because you're going to have a little bit more information. One of the most important decisions you're going to be making is when it comes to settlements. So if you're looking at a proposed settlement and you're thinking, is this fair? Is this good? Is this enough? Is this, what I want? That is incredibly important. And it's also extremely complicated, just with the financial part alone. And I'll give you an example. So let's say you have a couple who's divorcing, and just for the sake of simplicity, they have $100,000 in an IRA account and they have $100,000 in home equity. And so when it comes to split assets, they might say, okay, well, I'll take the house, you take the IRA, it's the same amount, and we're even, right? That might seem like an even split because they're both the same market value technically, but in reality, those two assets are so different, and the long-term effects of that is going to be really different for each of those people. So I'll give you an example. If, let's say, 10 years go by and the person who took the house, maybe they want to access that equity that they have and they want to sell the house. When they sell the house, most likely they're going to get that full 100,000, or maybe a little more depending on what the house is worth, but they're probably not going to pay tax on the proceeds unless the house has gone up in value a lot. So most likely they're going to have access to that $100,000. The person who took the IRA, worth the same amount, but when they go to take that money out of the IRA, that money is taxed just as ordinary income. So your $100,000 is really like $60,000 when you consider taxes. So those two assets in the long run are really not equal. Another thing to consider is how different types of assets grow over time. So same example, let's say 10 years from now, that IRA, it was invested in some aggressive stock and now it's doubled, in value. Whereas the house, maybe it's in a really rural area or somewhere where the property values didn't go up at all, maybe it goes up like 1% per year or less or something, then you could have the IRA that's doubled, and maybe the house hasn't really appreciated at all. And so again, in the long run, those two options are going to look totally different. So it's really important that you consider all of these different nuances of those financial decisions. And you're probably not going to think of all that stuff on your own. It's really hard to know all of the complexities with that. And even just a regular financial advisor who doesn't have experience specifically with divorce, they might not think of all those things as well. And an attorney is obviously working in your best interest, trying to help, but they're not specialized in the long-term financial impacts of these little decisions that you're making. It's not really their job. They obviously have experience with that sort of thing, but that's not their specific area of expertise. So it's really important that you have someone help you that has expertise in that exact area. And there's a type of professional called a certified divorce financial analyst. I happen to be one. But they do a lot of training that's specifically, financial planning with divorce, because it's so different than your average financial planning situation. So I would really recommend seeking someone out that can help with that and can help walk you through those decisions, because there is a lot to be done. Back to that kind of mid stage of the divorce, when you're in the middle of it, you have these really important decisions to make about settlements and income and all this and that. But also, that's an important time to, again, get a grip on your expenses, understand how these proposed settlements are going to impact your short-term financial situation and your long-term financial situation. So there's a lot that goes into that. So I really encourage you, spend the money, work with a professional, because it's going to make a huge impact on your financial situation for a really long time. Then once you've actually, settled and gone through the divorce and it's all over, there's some different tasks to do at that point, and there's some different questions that you might have. So once things have settled down a little bit and you really have a good idea of what your financial situation is, that's a really good time to do some in-depth financial planning, because your situation has changed so much. Your assets have changed, your income has changed, your expenses have changed, and your goals have probably changed. If your goals before were, retiring with your spouse and any other goals that you guys had, that's all changed now. And so you need to adapt to the new circumstances. So an advisor can help you figure out what your new goals are as a single person and what you need to do in order to achieve those goals. And they can give you really specific, practical advice to get you to your goals. So there's something to be done at every stage. There's more to be done once you're actually into the divorce and once you actually have some numbers to work with. But just know that there is a lot of help available to you. Your attorney is going to help you. You can seek out a financial advisor who can either work in conjunction with your attorney or can work, separately. But there's resources available to you, and don't just let these. I know these decisions seem overwhelming and confusing, and don't just kind of put them off because they're so overwhelming. Just get some help. Find some help. It's going to make such a huge difference for you in the long run and put you in a much better position in the long run. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. Thanks.